Right now, you are being held down by an invisible force so strong it keeps oceans from floating into space. You've never questioned it. You've never even felt it turn on. It's just always there. So what if, for 5 seconds, it wasn't? Not zero gravity like astronauts float in, not a little weaker, completely gone, everywhere on Earth, at the same time. You'd think 5 seconds is nothing. You blink for longer than that. But by the time gravity switched back on, the world you knew would already be a different place. And you might not even survive to see it come back. Let's talk about why. First, the obvious part. You'd float. That sounds fun for about half a second, like every kid's dream of flying. But here's the problem nobody thinks about. You're not the only thing floating. Your coffee mug floats, your chair floats, the water in the pipes behind your walls floats. Every loose object in every room on the planet suddenly has nothing holding it down, which means everything becomes a projectile the instant gravity comes back on. Think about that for a second. Gravity doesn't just disappear gently and then return gently. It's like someone hitting pause on a movie and then unpausing it, except in those 5 seconds, everything drifted a little out of place. When gravity snaps back on, it's not returning objects to where they were, it's dropping them from wherever they ended up. Your lamp might now be floating near the ceiling, your car keys might be hovering by the window, and in 5 seconds they all come crashing back down at the same time, everywhere. But that's just inside your house. Now scale this up to the entire planet. Here's the part that should really worry you. The atmosphere itself is only staying wrapped around Earth because gravity is holding it there. Air isn't glued to the ground. It's not solid. It's a gas, and gases expand to fill whatever space is available unless something is pulling them back down. That something is gravity. So the moment gravity vanishes, the air around you doesn't just sit still waiting politely for 5 seconds to pass. It starts expanding outward, drifting toward space. 5 seconds isn't long enough to lose your entire atmosphere, but it is long enough for the air pressure around you to shift, for wind patterns to lurch violently, and for anything not bolted down, dust, water droplets, loose debris, to start rising instead of falling. Now picture the oceans. Water behaves the same way air does when nothing is holding it in place. It wants to spread out. For 5 seconds, waves wouldn't crash down onto the shore. They'd sort of hang there, bulging upward, before slamming back into place the instant gravity returns. Coastal areas would get hit by sudden chaotic surges that look nothing like a normal wave. Ships would lift slightly off the water surface and then crash back down. And this is where it gets genuinely dangerous for you personally. If you happened to be standing when gravity disappeared, you wouldn't just gently rise like a balloon. Your body would react to every tiny bit of momentum it had. If you were walking, that motion would launch you forward and upward. If you were driving a car, the car's engine is still pushing it forward, but now with nothing holding the tires to the road, that car becomes a rocket with no rudder, spinning and drifting in whatever direction it was already moving. If you were flying in an airplane, the plane doesn't need gravity to fly. It needs air moving over its wings for lift. But gravity disappearing throws off the entire balance of pressure the plane depends on. Planes could suddenly pitch upward uncontrollably as the normal downward pull that pilots constantly compensate for simply vanishes. But here's the part that's almost funnier in a dark way. The ground itself has to answer to gravity too. Buildings are built with the assumption that things want to fall down, not sideways or up. Support beams, foundations, bridges, they're engineered to resist a downward force.
Take that force away for 5 seconds and things don't collapse. They actually get calmer briefly, structurally speaking. The real danger isn't the 5 seconds without gravity, it's the moment it switches back on. That's the part nobody talks about. Everyone imagines the missing gravity as the scary part. It's not. The scary part is the landing. Every object on Earth that drifted even a few centimeters out of place during those 5 seconds falls back down at the same time from wherever it happens to be. Loose bricks, tools left on rooftops, birds mid-flight which rely on constant micro-adjustments against gravity just to stay level would suddenly tumble as gravity yanks them back into a world where up and down means something again. And this raises an interesting question. What happens to you specifically if you're floating a meter or two off the ground when gravity switches back on? You fall, just like a book knocked off a shelf, except now everyone on Earth who was in mid-air falls at the same moment. If you were near a hard surface, a set of stairs, a swimming pool with no water underneath you at that instant, the landing decides everything. So why does this 5-second nightmare actually reveal something important about how insanely fragile the balance of physics really is? Because gravity isn't just the thing that makes stuff fall. It's the invisible architecture holding together nearly every system we depend on without ever thinking about it. Your blood circulation partially depends on gravity to help regulate pressure throughout your body. Your inner ear uses gravity to tell your brain which way is up, which is how you keep balance. Remove gravity, even briefly, and your inner ear sends confused signals to your brain. This is part of why astronauts get so disoriented and nauseous in real zero gravity. Except astronauts get days to adjust. You'd get 5 seconds and then be slammed straight back into full gravity with zero warning. And speaking of things falling, think about fire for a second. Flames actually behave differently without gravity. Normally, hot air rises because gravity pulls the cooler, denser air down and pushes the hot, lighter air up, which is what gives a candle flame its classic teardrop shape. Without gravity, there is no up for hot air to rise towards, so flames actually become small little round blobs instead of the flickering shape you're used to. For 5 seconds, every open flame on the planet, stoves, candles, wildfires, would briefly change shape before gravity yanked everything back into its familiar behavior. Now, here's a curveball most people get completely wrong when they imagine this scenario. They assume the moon would suddenly go flying off into space, since gravity is what keeps it orbiting Earth. But 5 seconds isn't long enough for that. Orbital motion depends on gravity constantly, continuously, moment to moment. But the moon is so far away and moving so fast that a 5-second gap wouldn't be enough to meaningfully change its path. It's like removing your hand from a spinning basketball for a fraction of a second. The ball doesn't instantly fly away, it just continues along whatever path it was already on, slightly altered. That's actually the strange twist in all of this. The things closest to Earth's surface, you, your furniture, the air, the water, react almost instantly to gravity vanishing, but things farther away, like satellites or the moon, are moving so fast that 5 seconds barely registers, which means during this 5-second window, the sky wouldn't change, but your living room would look like a poltergeist just moved in. So what's the actual lesson buried inside this bizarre thought experiment? It's this: you have never once in your entire life had to think about gravity. Not really. It's the most powerful force shaping your daily existence, and it's so consistent, so reliable, that your brain doesn't even register it as a thing. It just becomes the invisible backdrop everything else happens against. And that's true of a lot of things in life, isn't it? The systems working so well in the background that you forget they're systems at all, until they stop. 5 seconds without gravity wouldn't end civilization, it wouldn't crack the planet in half, but it would be enough to remind 7 billion people all at once that the ground beneath their feet was never something they controlled. It was something they were simply, quietly allowed to stand on. So next time you're annoyed about something small, a slow elevator, a long line, a delayed flight, remember there's an invisible force keeping literally everything you own from floating into the ceiling, working perfectly, for free, every second of your life. And it's only when you imagine it disappearing, even for 5 seconds, that you realize just how much you were never in control to begin with.